Good afternoon, all. For next lecture, we have Dr. Siddharth Tiwari from National Agri Food Biotechnology Institute. He has done his PhD and postdoc from NBRI Lucknow, and he is currently working on metabolic engineering of staple crops like banana, wheat for nutritional enrichment. In banana and wheat, they are working on biofortification aspect of in both the crops, and he has also developed the methodology for a marker-free transformation procedure of wheat and banana, and he has also developed a plant seed-based edible vaccine against cholera and rabies, and he is having very good publications in journals like Functional and Integrative Genomics PLOS One, Journal of Experimental Botany, and Frontiers in Plant Science. And he has also, during his work experience, he has visited the Queensland University of Technology 3 times, and he's having very good work on banana fortification on the aspect of provitamin A rich and iron-rich bananas. So today we are going to listen on this aspect only. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation, and
Thank you.
welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. First, I would like to say thanks to organizer for giving me an opportunity to come over here and interact, and I will try to explore or show you that what I am doing at NABI, and first you all are most welcome and wish you a very happy new year. Yeah. So here I am going to present my work on genome editing in crops for nutritional quality. Before I start details about my work, first I would like to introduce about my organization, that is my responsibility. I am working in National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institute, that is a basically autonomous institute of Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, established in Mohali, Punjab. This is not working. So NABI is basically started in 2010 at Mohali. This is basically a rented building we got and established in 2010. And then very recently, before 2 years, in 2017, we had shifted in our main campus. That is located in Knowledge City. Knowledge City, there are so many other institutes like ICER, Business School, Biotech Park, nanotechnology institutes are available over there. And that NABI is working on 3 major aspects. We have that research and development wings, resource generation, and reach to community. For achieving our objectives, we have some vision. Vision is like to provide food and nutritional security for all through agri-food biotechnology research and innovations. This is our beautiful campus. You can see this is a research and administrative building of NABI. We have that nearly 8 acres of land for research experimental purpose. This is that banana germplasm that I am saying that we are working on that, and we have nearly 30 germplasms that we have collected from different regions of India. And this particular you can say field we usually use for different crops like rice, wheat for our research purpose. We have greenhouses, net houses, and I would like to invite you all, whenever you have time, you can come and visit over there. For achieving our objective, as I told that we are working on interface of agriculture, food and nutrition as in the name of National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institutes. To achieving our objective, we have different institutional program on agri-biotechnology and food and nutrition. In the heading, you can see that we are working in biotechnological approaches like CRISPR, transgenics, cisgenics. For that, we have that one of the institutional program on development of designer crops with high nutrition, increased shelf life and process quality. Then we have very good computational, or you can say bioinformatics facility, where we have different projects on genomics and computational biology for marker and gene discovery. And we are also working on basic biology for crop improvement. Similarly, we have different projects on food and nutritional biotechnology that different scientists on this particular wings are working and helping us to perform that nutritional and food aspects analysis of our genetically improved crops. In this presentations, I mostly focused on biofortification. I think you heard about biofortification. You know about that biofortification? It's basically that improvement of nutrition quality of crops, and there are two basic approaches people are used. Which one? Pardon? Yeah, you can say that there is one major approach is plant breeding. That, and second one is basically a biotechnological approaches. Biotechnology, there transgenic, cisgenic, CRISPR, all these can come. So here I will mostly discuss about biotechnological approaches. In that biofortification, you can see that there is a gain of function and loss of function. What is that meaning of gain of function? Gain of function, that means you have to introduce another gene in that particular crops, or that comes usually overexpression of that particular gene. And loss of function, where you can use RNAi or genome editing. In this case, gain of function, like as I told that transgenic and cisgenic come under this. You know about cisgenics? What is that? Same species. That you have to transfer that gene from the same species. Transgenics, that is from across the taxa. You can take gene from any organism and transfer to plants. Loss of function, that approach we are using RNAi. That work we had published in 2016 for that depletion of phytic acids content. Phytic acids basically anti-nutrients. In wheat we try to silence some of the pathway genes by using RNAi approach. So we have to enhance that you can say free irons. Phytic acids basically work as a chelating agents. It will basically bind to iron and other metals, and they will not be freely available or bioavailable. So RNAi approach, we just reduce that content of phytic acids, and that work was published in Journal of Experimental Botany in 2016. And we are also working on genome editing, where CRISPR-Cas is most advanced technique. I think you heard so many information about this particular techniques. Our previous lectures also, that was really fantastic. I have heard from that office. He has explained very nicely about all basic concepts about that CRISPR and other things. In this presentation, I will cover particular nutrition, that is a provitamin A or beta carotene, that is basically a precursor of vitamin A. So we will explain or discuss mostly about vitamin A or provitamin A, how we have to increase that content in banana. There is a pathway well known. How we did that work, I will show you. Then genome editing and its application, crop improvement. In general basics, we will discuss about that how that particular genome editing or CRISPR approach is useful in plant system. How many advancements are recently published in this particular techniques. And then finally, I will mostly discuss about banana, what I did in that banana. So I am expecting that after this lecture, you will get aware with the recent techniques like genome editing for crop improvements, application of genome editing for novel agronomic nutritional traits, and I am expecting that you will also be able to write projects or your thesis or your work or your project on that particular field of plant biotechnology. So now I will come on vitamin A deficiency. You have to know that it's one of the serious problems all over the world. More than 6.5 lakh children die due to this vitamin A deficiency in every year. And another more than 3.5 lakhs go permanently blind. In case of India, this is a scenario is not very good. The children age of less than 5 years, around 57% of children are mostly suffered with vitamin A deficiency. And there is a more than 3 lakhs death per annum reported just due to that vitamin A deficiency. That is a data published by ICMR reports, NIN Hyderabad. And that vitamin A deficiency mostly responsible for mortality, blindness, night blindness, impaired immune system, impaired brain development. How you will get that vitamin A? There are majorly two sources. One is derived from animal source, another from plant source. Animal, you can directly get vitamin A in the form of retinol. Those are non-vegetarian, they can directly get this. But for vegetarian, they are mostly dependent on plant sources. In plants, that is a carotenoids. In carotenoids, there are known as a provitamin A. That is the three main carotenoids: alpha carotene, beta carotene, and gamma carotene. And this alpha carotene has the highest activity to convert into vitamin A in our body. So as I told that there are different sources of vitamin A, like animal sources and plant sources. But there are some limitations of these sources. Like high cost, unacceptable for religious reasons to eat animal foods like non-vegetarian foods. Then vitamin A activity in the food, acceptability of the test and cost, availability in the market, status and prestige in the society, familiarity, seasonal availability, and size of the commonly eaten portion. So these are the major limitations that we have to get our RDA or recommended dietary allowance for vitamin A. So then banana comes in the picture. Why? It's a tropical fruit crop and cultivated more than 130 countries in all over the world. It's also a second largest produced fruits just after citrus, and India is the largest producer of banana. It contributes 26% of the world banana production. The fruit is available throughout the year at the reasonable price and also a most suitable and choicest fruits for the diets of age groups. These are the general attributes of banana, why we have started work on banana. But why we are doing biotechnology in banana? That is the reason of this. Because banana is a basically triploid in nature, so it's a sterile. There is a parthenocarpy. So you will not do breeding kind of things. So you have to depend on biotechnological approaches only. So that's why we are using that biotechnological approaches in banana. Now we have another question, how much vitamin A or provitamin A we have to enhance in banana? Like this is the recommended dietary allowance for vitamin A that is reported by ICMR, and here you can see that we have to eat per day 600 microgram retinol, and the beta carotene conversion ratio they have reported 1:8, so that you have to eat 8 molecules of beta carotene to get 1 molecules of retinols. So they have calculated 4800 microgram beta carotene we have to eat per day, so get 100% RDA. In case of banana, this is, I am just showing that is a representative picture. This is a pulp and these are the peel. Pulp basically eatable portion, and we estimated that this is one of the most commercial cultivars, Grand 9. I think you heard about that. This is a commonly available in the market, and in the worldwide this is a highly cultivated variety. And this variety, you can say that pulp weight we have estimated nearly 100 grams. So that in our paper published in 2017 in Frontiers, we have screened Indian germplasm and found that this Grand 9 contained 400 to 500 microgram per 100 gram of beta carotene. So one banana usually contains this, but our requirements is 4800 to get 100% RDA. So we estimated if we have to get 100% RDA from single banana, we have to increase at least 11-fold content of beta carotene, so that we have to reach 4800 microgram. But initially we fixed our objective, at least we can get 50% RDA. 50% nearly 2500 microgram beta carotene from one banana. Because rest of the 50% you can get from so many other sources that we usually eat. For achieving our targets, we are working in 2 major projects. One is that basically a BIRAC funded project started in 2012 and it is continuous running. And this project basically a multi-institutional project where we got technology from Australia. He is our partner, Professor James Dell. He got initial funding from Bill Melinda Gates Foundation and transferred that technology to Uganda as underdeveloped countries. Then in 2010-11, that Indian governments made contact with this person and finally developed a collaborative projects on that. So initially we got that technology from Australia and understand about the tissue culture transformation. We got some gene constructs, and different partners, Indian partners are working on different approaches in banana, like National Research Center for Banana, that is a ICR institutes in Trichy. They are usually working on that field trials, provitamin A, iron work. IHR Bangalore is working on disease resistance component, fusium wilt resistance. Tamil Nadu Agriculture University Coimbatore working on BBTV resistance, and Bhabha Atomic Research Center working on iron biofortification. Nabi is the coordinator of this project, national coordinator we are, and we are working on provitamin A enhancement or beta carotene enhancement in banana. And parallelly we have also started our own work, that is a basically exploratory work, so that we don't know what will be the performance of constructs or technology that we received from James Dell. It may work or may not work in Indian conditions. So parallelly we started our own approach, our work on that enhancement of provitamin or beta carotene. Here we used a gain of function, as I told, and loss of function approach. And these are our targets that we have identified in banana. So this is that carotenoids biosynthesis pathway. You can see that this is that MEB pathway, and this is carotenoids biosynthesis pathway. The substrate flux comes from here to in this pathway. This is a deoxyxylose 5-phosphate synthase, one of the rate limiting enzymatic steps, and after that it make this GGPP, generalized diphosphate. By the activity of phytine synthase, it goes to phytine, and finally subsequently it will make lycopene, and lycopene diverted into two directions. One is alpha carotene or lutein biosynthesis, and another is a beta carotene. Beta carotene is our interest of molecules. So in this pathway you can see that how we have using this biotechnological approach, gain of function and loss of function. Gain of function, what is that meaning? Overexpression. Here this is one of the rate limiting enzymatic steps, and another rate limiting enzyme is phytine synthase. That is well known in literature. There are so many crops they have reported. These are the important enzymatic steps that people usually used for overexpression study. So we have identified these two genes, and for loss of function we used CRISPR approach in banana. In this PDS, phytine desaturase, we have used as a marker that I will explain how I did work on that. And finally you can see lycopene diverted in this alpha carotene synthesis. So diversion we want to stop because our target molecules is this. So we edited or genome edited this particular lycopene epsilon cyclase. And another limitation is that this beta carotene should be stable, because there is another enzymatic steps that can degrade this beta carotene. There is a beta hydroxylase and CCDs. Those are going to be degrade beta carotene. So these two enzymatic steps also we identified to edit by using CRISPR approach in banana. So how I did work, that I will explain in my next of the few slides. This is that one of the important things in plant. You have to be optimized at tissue culture approach. Although I don't know, you have recently seen that paper from White's group from US. He is extraordinary scientist and did so much work on that crop and plants. He recently reported one approach where he directly expressed that some growth regulator inducing genes, and in that tobacco potato he has demonstrated the CRISPR approach, that in vivo germination of that shoots from the leaf. That paper you have to read, I think. That is published recently in Nature Biotechnology. It's a very good paper in plants field, and I think you will definitely get some very good idea on that paper. If you have difficulties, just write to me, I will send that paper to you. So that this is a basically plant tissue culture dependent, although he has reported tissue culture independent approach in plant transformation for CRISPR approach. So as I told, we are working on two banana cultivars, and these two cultivars, Grand and Rastali, we are working, and we have optimized very efficient protocol of regeneration by embryogenesis. So you can see that these are the embryogenic callus. These are the suspension cultures. Suspension culture we usually maintained in our lab after routine subculturing like 7 days or 10 days. And this suspension we used for transformation experiments for overexpression or editing kind of approaches. And after transformation, we have to germinate these embryos, and after germination, that plants transfer into rooting media and finally acclimatize in the soil pods. So this is very efficient protocol. We had published that work in 2017 in PLOS One, as well as in very recently 2018 Acta Physiology Plantarum. So if you want, you can get more idea about this work. Then we have optimized transformation also. So transformation, you can see that we have used a kanamycin selection, and these are basically a regeneration on that independent events. Independent events are very important for any approach, because if you will get that same events in multiple time, it's not solve your purpose. So we have generated multiple independent events. Here you can see that these are the group of embryos, and we consider this particular group as a single events. And after that there are germination on that selection media, and in the rooting media you can simply see that non-transgenic plants are not able to survive on kanamycin selection, although that our positive events survive. These are the putative positive plants. That work we also published very recently, 2019 in Scientia Horticulture. You can get in details about that, how we had performed efficient transformation in banana as well as regeneration. Then after generation, by following this our approach, we have generated our events, and we have greenhouse. Those events we had transferred in greenhouse for that growth and acclimatizations. Finally, we had made big net houses with the support of BIRAC, These are the nearly 2000 square meter areas where we have 2 net houses. Those are very big net houses because we have to follow Government of India guidelines to grow any transgenics or any genetically modified crops. So following that guidelines, we had made that our net houses, and this net house was ready in 2017 January, and that plantation we had performed in April 2017. This is that structure of our net houses. And that in 2017 August or September, the plants has very well grown in our net houses, you can see. And finally rooted, fruits established in March 2018. Then I will explain after this little bit introduction about genotyping, about what we did about those events. What was that results after generation of these number of events. Nearly 500 events we have generated, and what I got I will show you. Now I will come on genome editing and its application in crop improvement. So I think you heard lot of about that genome editing, and this is like basically a genetic engineering kind of approach. The definition more or less similar as a transgenics. Here the DNA is inserted, deleted, modified or replaced in the genome of a living organism. The common methods for such editing use engineered nucleases, that is known as a molecular scissors. So ZFN, zinc finger nucleases, TALENs, transcription activator like effector molecules, nucleases, and CRISPR. CRISPR stands for cluster regulatory interspace short palindromic repeats. So these three methods are commonly used based on that endonucleases activity of that particular enzymes. How CRISPR works, I think you have also heard about this, and you have learned, so that I will not go in depth, but superficially I just explain. This is an innate immunity of bacteria. When that virus infected to plants, this bacterial systems basically, that foreign DNA introduced in this genomes of bacteria, and it forms that CRISPR locus transcription. After transcription it forms pre-CRISPR RNA, and this pre-CRISPR RNA, when that again that same virus infect to that particular bacteria, it forms that this complex along with endonuclease Cas9, Cas gene basically, and that RNA guided targeting to eliminate that viral DNA fragment. So virus will not be able to infect again of that particular bacteria. So this innate immunity has been exploited by some of the excellent scientists in the world. I think so you know about Jennifer Doudna and Feng Zhang. They demonstrated this technology, although they are fighting for patents kind of rights. So you can see most of the information on the net. So these are the most important steps for genome editing. You are already doing experimental things, but I have just shortlisted that important points. Identified the gene or region which have to be mutated or modified. You should know about that. Which gene? Because there are so many copies of that particular genes available. What is your target? You have to identify it. Select a 20 base pair target sequence just adjacent to PAM. PAM is, you know about that? Adjacent motif. So near to that, that is basically criteria of Cas9. Cas9 is usually work, although there are several variables available of Cas, that is a different names, they have identified different this sequences, but I am just talking most of use Cas9. There that PAM is most of the important sequence or region in that particular gene, and it's a size nearly 20 base pair. Then you have to search off targets. There are different softwares and bioinformatics tools are available, breaking case and other that you can use and search that. That at least you can just get some probability how that off targets effects are possible that particular targets. And choose the right CRISPR-Cas vectors for plant selection. There are, when you will go add gene, I think sir already told about that. When you will go add gene, there are different categories and vectors are available. Those are basically non-profit organizations. So you have to just pay nominal fees and you will get that particular vectors, although you have to be acknowledged them. Then clone the target sequence with guide RNA regulated by monocot or dicot specific promoter. And finally delivery of the vectors. There are different methods like PEG, particle bombardment or agrobacterium that you have to choose as per your crops or optimization of protocol. So in that case CRISPR-Cas applications, those are basically divided into three kind of approaches based on the site directed nuclease activity. This is a non-homologous end joining methods. where you usually delete that particular sequences. This is basically a natural mechanism of that non-homologous end joining and homologous DNA repair mechanism. CRISPR usually work on these two approaches. In this mechanism, that is known as the SDN1. In SDN1, usually you have to delete some small or large deletion in that particular gene. So you are going to be disrupt the function of that particular gene. So protein will not form. The SDR, the second mechanism based on SDR, where you can insert a small fragments. It is denoted as a SDN2. And SDN3, it's like a transgenics, where you have to insert that big size of whole DNA in that particular genome by using CRISPR approach. And now that this you can see that CRISPR is widely used for plants, and here there are so many applications of CRISPR like abiotic stress tolerance, biotic stress, micronutrient enhancement, seedlessness development, reduced anti-nutrient components. Although along with that there are some limitations also that you have to take care when you will design or perform your experiments. Like genomic sequence information should be available. If that information is not available, you will get off targets and not appropriate targeting or editing in that particular gene. So genomic information, or that is one of the important criteria. You have to see that off target effects, whatever reason you have selected for that. As I told, there are different softwares that can help you for that. And the protocol of transformation, how you have to introduce that particular guide RNA or Cas9 protein in that tissues. Then that is a methodology, like as I told, agrobacterium, particle bombardment, or PEG mediated. So these are some challenges that you have to be sought out during your experimental process. And that we have summarized all these things in our book chapter. It is in the press, and I think it will come very soon. And the advancement, you can see that paper was published in Nature Biotechnology in 2018. These 5 crops US government deregulated. They are not following that whole regulatory process or biosafety process for that. Those are developed by using genome editing or CRISPR approach. One is soybean, they have developed for drought and salt tolerance. Camelina, they have increased the oil content. Green whistle grass, delaying flowering. Waxy corn, high amylopectin, and white button mushroom for anti-browning. So this paper you can read where they have clearly mentioned it will not go for regulatory process. So this is just the advantages of CRISPR. That's why people are trying to shift from transgenics to CRISPR approach. And these are some of the examples of published literature where you can see that how they did anti-browning in that mushroom. They have identified this particular polyphenol oxidase gene that is basically responsible for browning. They have edited this gene in that mushroom. Also in that apple, they have developed that non-browning GM apple. And similarly that waxy corn, as I told you. And there are some disease resistance component also developed in that wheat, powdery mildew, by multiplex, that they have identified multiplexing or multi kind of genes editing, and also in that maize for drought resistance. So these are some of the examples, although recently there are so many literature and papers published on those things. This is one of the recent advancement. As I told you that we usually use that transgenics approach for CRISPR also. But this advancement known as a RNP, I think you heard about that, ribonucleoprotein complex. In this approach, this is one of the pioneer paper published in Nature Communication, where they have RNP and that your RNA, guide RNA, they have coated with particle bombardment, gold particles, and perform particle bombardment in that particular cells or that desirable tissue. I think they did work on wheat. And finally, without selection, they have generated, because that in RNP complex, that ribonucleoprotein will survive independently in this particular genome, and it recognizes that your target sites, guide RNA, and after this target sites, it will create some mutations or deletions, and after that, that protein going to be degraded. So mutations will be there, and there will not be any selection marker gene they have used, and grow those plants in that callus induction media, and finally generated plants without selection. And after screening, they have identified some of the stable events. Those are non-transgenics basically. So these are one of the advancement, although as I told that recently Vitis group has published paper, you will see that there is so many advancement, and even you can develop your own technology if you have some kind of innovation in your mind that you can go for patent or published. This is another very important research published in Plant System, that de novo domestication of wild tomato using genome editing. What is that meaning? Domestication, you know about that? क्या होता है? मतलब cultivation में you can use for that. So this is that one of the very good paper. What they did, this is one of that tomato wild variety Solanum pimpinellifolium. In this variety, they have this variety is basically very good for disease resistance, but not very good for other qualities. So they identified 6 loci for different characteristics, like that general plant growth habit, fruit shape, size, fruit number, and nutritional quality. For all these characteristics, they have already different genes. They targeted by multiplexing all these genes in tomato and enhance the quality and characteristic for this. So this wild variety, they have basically converted into domestication. So this is one of the really very good advantage of CRISPR approach, where you can use multiple targeting in a genome, and wild variety you can convert into a domesticated variety. And advantages of CRISPR. After summary of my details about this CRISPR, it's a very simple and efficient methods. It performs precise editing with wide applicability, change gene sequence in a targeted way, less expensive and faster than conventional transgenic technology, rapid product development cycles, and most importantly, lower regulatory cost and time, allowing smaller players like small academic institutes can also do work on that. Now I will come again on my work. Okay, I think you have clear about that how that crop improvements CRISPR can help for that. And initially I explained about what I did, how many events of banana I have developed. Now I am again here, how I use this particular technology, genome editing in banana. As I told that we have identified overexpression and editing that CRISPR silencing targets. In loss of function, PDS we had used as a proof of concept, lycopene epsilon cyclase to divert that lycopene resources in beta carotene biosynthesis, BCA, CCDA and NCD we identified to stabilize beta carotene content in banana fruit. For this, we had published a paper in 2018, that is a pioneer paper in banana. It was the first paper in the world on banana. We had demonstrated CRISPR approach. Even any fruit crops in the India that we had demonstrated to edit this PDS gene. PDS basically a phytin diseaser is responsible to synthesize carotenoids, as well as there is a role in that photosynthesis. When you edit, there are so many reports published used as a marker for PDS. When you will edit this PDS gene, you will get albino phenotypes. Albino, that is a bleaching kind of things. There will not green red kind of things. So when we edited this, we had designed that gene, that construct for PDS, and how we have designed, because banana genome is already known. So we are not worried much about that off-target kind of effects, although we did so much bioinformatics analysis to identify our gene. Then we had designed this CRISPR vectors for this particular targets and generated in our regeneration media. So here you can see in that regeneration steps a clear difference in PDS edited lines. There is a albino or that albino kind of phenotypes as compared to normal control. And these plants have grown and transferred into that rooting media, where you can see that completely albino phenotypes in the sum of the lines. Those are basically homozygous lines. And after sequencing, we got different edited lines, and we found that there is a insertion or deletions in some of the lines. After insertion or deletions, there is basically a frame shift mutation, and some of the lines had generated that stop codons in between. So that protein is not able to make in these particular lines, and for that chlorophyll synthesis is blocked and carotenoids will not synthesize, and homozygous line will not able to survive on that normal route, acclimatized conditions. We have also seen that chlorophyll has degraded and total carotenoids has also degraded in these lines. That work was published in this functional integrative genomics. If you want to get more details, you can read this paper. On the basis of this proof of concept, as I told, another targeted lycopene epsilon cyclase. In banana, we had followed that our tissue culture and optimized protocol for transformation, where we edited lycopene epsilon cyclase, and again we had generated number of lines and these are the chromatogram after sequencing we had generated. And then we had performed T7 endonuclease activity. This particular endonuclease you can use for screening as well as identification of homozygous or heterozygous lines. What is that meaning, homozygous or heterozygous editing lines? Can anyone explain? Exactly. Very nice, good. So in banana basically triploid as I told. So there is each gene has 3 alleles. So we have to see that if all 3 alleles are edited or mutated, then it will be a homozygous. If 2 or 1 edited, then it will be a heterozygous. So by using T7 endonuclease, you can also identify those things. What I did, I identified 4 promising lines. These are the GN10, GN9, GN7, GN4, and this is a control. These 4 lines, when we how T7 work, basically T7 recognize that basically a mismatch in that genome. If there is a mismatch in that particular gene or alleles, it will cut over there, and there will not be mismatch, it will not cut. So in that control you can see there is not any fragmentation, but in this particular line you can see fragmentation after T7 endonuclease. Similarly in T9 you can also see fragmentation, and this line T7 also you can fragmentation, but in this particular line you will not see any fragmentation. So this particular line, either it is a normal control, there is no editing, or it may be homozygous. How we have to confirm that this is a homozygous or not homozygous? What we did, we mixed that genomic DNA of control in all these lines again. When we mix that genomic DNA or that our target regions in these lines, this is again you can say fragmentation. It's almost same pattern. The control, this is with control, this is again with control, but we have edited that control in this line, there is a fragmentation started. So it creates mismatch on that. So we got that, we identified this is our homozygous lines. And finally that we had generated all these lines in our net houses, and recently we got fruiting on that, and after editing of this, one of the lines are showing nearly 6-fold content high of beta carotene. This is that pictures, and these are the analysis of carotenoids estimation in leaf as well as in our fruits, and you can see that other carotenoids like lutein or alpha carotene almost neglected, and if this homozygous line, it is not detectable. And in fruits also you can see that beta carotene has enhanced, but lutein and alpha carotene has lower down. So our editing or metabolic you can say modification is working in banana by editing of lycopene epsilon cyclase. So this work basically under communication. I hope so it will come soon in that scientific community, that you can read more about how we did this work. Another target, as I told, CCDs, that is also responsible for degradation of beta carotene. We did so much bioinformatics analysis that how there are so many substrates that CCD can work on that. There are so many homologs of CCDs in banana as well as in other crops. This is responsible for carotenoid degradation basically. So when we perform some bioinformatics analysis like homology modeling and docking study, there are some substrate that we had provided. We found that apo-beta carotenol and beta carotene are one of the promising substrate for our 2 CCDs that we have identified in 2 contrasting cultivars. And after protein purification and enzymatic assays with this purified protein, that is degraded, basically beta carotene degraded into beta alanine. So this is a control beta alanine, and with the reaction of this our purified CCDs along with beta carotene and 10 apo-beta carotenol, you can see there is a peak. So there is these are responsible for degradation of beta carotene and 10 apo-beta carotenol, but it is not working on alpha carotene and beta cryptoxanthines, so that it is very specifically working on two carotenoids. So what we did, we have identified and designed targets for that because this work is undergoing, so that I will not explain details about that, but if somebody wants to get more information, I will explain. Then we are working on protoplast based editing by using RNP. Why we are working on this? Because we have very good systems of banana tissue culture transformation, but why we are going to shift in protoplast? Can anyone explain about this? Exactly. As I told, banana is a diploid and sterile crop. Whatever modification you will do in that banana, it will be remain forever. So we introduce selection marker or any Cas9, it will introduce in the genome, it will be like a transgenics. But in this case, when you will infect protoplast by RNP, it will work like a non-transgenics. So we had very good optimization of that protoplast from banana embryogenic cell suspension culture. Now we are trying to optimize regeneration of these protoplast. Those are edited with RNP complex. So this is our purpose finally, to develop completely non-transgenic events of banana. And this is our work, as I told that we were the first to demonstrate CRISPR in banana, and that was highlighted in this international service for the acquisition of agribiotech application in 2018. And it is also published in so many places. Also that was basically broadcasted by Rajya Sabha National TV in last year. If you want, you can see this details in this particular link. And also I presented that work in last year South Asian Biosafety Conference. The international community also appreciated our work on genome editing. And it was the top 15th technology of basically technology from India other than ISRO science, rocket science. So under that 15 technology, that our technology genome editing applied in banana genome was covered. And I just little bit explain about our overexpression work also, because we are getting very good results on that, but I will not go in details. This work, what we have, as I told, that we have identified these two particular targets, DXS and phytin synthase, for an overexpression study. We had performed functional complementation after making clone of full length of these genes in bacterial systems. And finally that we had generated events, multiple events. There are so many lines, like 500 lines we have generated with different constructs, and plants are looking almost normal as compared to control. And you can see that color change. That is a completely golden banana. This technology, it's in advanced stage, and we are going to file patent for that. In HPLC process, you can see that clear difference in the color. There is so much content of beta carotene. Now we are multiplying those events, and under the project we are going to transfer those events in our other institutes. Those are basically in South India, like NRC Banana, as well as Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. Those are basically natural climates for banana. So we will actually judge that our phenotypes as well as carotenoids content over there with our promising lines. So that is a third part of our project that we are going to do. Now I would like to acknowledge our project partners: Australia, QUT, Professor James Dell, National Research Center Banana, Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University, and IHR. Those are some of the great scientists in India as well as in outsides. Those are helping me to work properly in banana, because we were just new on that banana field. And our executive director, he is very supportive, very kind to allow me to come over here, Dr. T.R. Sharma, and he is very supporting to me as well as for other staffs of our NABI. And our funding agency, BIRAC, he is very supportive, provided so much funds for us to do some good in science. Department of Biotechnology, they are funded projects in that CRISPR work of our banana. And most importantly, our research team. Dr. Praveen Avasthi, he did work as a project scientist and recently went to check for that postdoc. Shivani just completed her PhD. Navneet has submitted PhD. Karambir has recently joined. Hirel, Siddhant, Mithilesh, they are working on different aspects of banana. Faculty of Navi is very supporting. Usually I got guidance from them. And our technical staffs, Pankaj Pandey and Atul. Thank you so much.
For your lectures, as you are practically doing very well.
Thank you.
My question is that as you have already proved that concept by targeting PDS gene, so we can in you confirm our what is the construct is okay or not. So can we use that PDS target gene in other crop also?
As I told that this is a crop specific. You have to design your own guide RNA.
Yeah, yeah.
You can use backbone of that vector, but guide RNA you have to design for your particular crop.
Okay.
That is one of the limitations of CRISPR. The same vector you can't use in your crop. It may work or it may not work. So that same vector or guide RNA, you have to first see that it is available in your crops or not.
And my another question is that, like in case of construct designing, we introduce their NLS, nuclear localization signal, for introducing our construct and target to into the nucleus. For in case of construct designing, but in case of RNP complex, there is no nuclear localization. Then how will
that is this is a kit is available in vitro, basically RNP kits, NEV kits are available, commercially available. Either you can do one thing, you have to design your own Cas9 in a vector and purify that protein, and that purified protein you have to be introduced. That is a basically protein form. Or RNP kits you can purchase from that companies, and that you have to be expressed, make that protein, and you have to optimize that ratio of guide RNA and your RNP. And that ratio you have to be introduced in the cells. And that RNP ribonucleoprotein will not be stable. It will work for some times only. So when that guide RNA will identify the target regions, that RNP go and work on that. So there is the possibility that you can get some of the lines.
So
it's not like that 100% efficiency, but you will definitely get some of the lines. But you have to be optimize that combinations of guide RNA and RNP.
so that you are saying the RNP and guide RNA separately?
Yeah. Separately.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful work and nice presentation.
Thank you.
Sir, usually like we are working in rice or Arabidopsis or mustard. So there, whenever, say in case of transgenic or in genome editing, whenever we are getting heterozygous line, we are going for next generation, we are getting homozygous, heterozygous and wild.
Exactly.
So in this case, as you told that banana is sterile and it is a vegetatively propagated crop. So you have done genome editing and like directly in T1 you got homozygous mutant, or how, like homozygous?
In protoplast based, you will definitely get a there are also a possibility of mixing heterozygous or homozygous, but it will be a non-transgenics when we will go by protoplast. But we will go for like that agrobacterium transformation, their selection marker is available, and that Cas9 is available, left-right border is available. So it will go and introduce in the genome of that particular crops. In banana, as I told, it's basically a vegetative propagated crops. So whatever go in the genome, it will remain forever. It will not segregate it out like in rice or wheat. In the next generation, it will be segregated and you will identify that your particular lines. But in case of banana, it's not possible.
So that mutant you got mutations, so that directly you got homozygous mutant after transformation?
Homozygous in which terms? Like that all three alleles?
Yeah, all three alleles.
That we have to be screened. As I showed that in case of LCY editing, we have to be screened. Which one is homozygous line and which is heterozygous line.
And suppose you got 4 or 5 events by knockout of same gene. So whether phenotypically and all that other analysis, so they are same or they have some difference?
Phenotypically, there are some of the possibilities to get difference because the cell lines or that particular cells, those are you are going to use for transformation may be different. And then plants grow in that particular environment and soil, the phenotypes may be different. It's not like editing may be same, final outcome may be the same, but that phenotypes, it's not possible that it may be 100% same through all lines. It depends of environment, cell that you used, methods of transformation, there are so many parameters.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your lecture. My doubt is on your SDN3 kind of editing where we do. So what is the fragment size we can introduce into the genome? As we told that new gene can be introduced using that.
They have SDN 1, 2 and 3. Those are basically in India, still that guidelines is not available. They are some of the experts in DBT, they are trying to make guidelines for genome editing crops. This is just basically a assumption that they may be a 3 kind of categories: SDN1, SDN2 and SDN3. SDN1 it's like a simple mutation. You have to create mutation. It may be a small fragment and it's a big fragment. SDN2, they are saying that there is a small kind of insertion of that particular. In SDN3, they are saying that big fragments. But that big fragment, still I don't know. When guidelines will release, we will know that which kind of size they have fixed for that.
So any example, that they have inserted a gene completely using
There are so
this
many examples.
complete
When
gene has been
yeah,
inserted.
yeah. Even GFB have been proved by using that insertion SDR approach. It's a little tough and complicated. It's not that much easy as like this, what is that, SDN1. But people are using that.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Thank you, sir, for this nice presentation.
Thank you.
My question is, you are knocking out two of the genes in the pathway of this beta carotene, where you knock down a gene for alpha carotene and also for zeatin, right?
Not zeatin, lutein.
Oh, sorry.
Lutein
So,
alpha carotene is a
yeah.
pathway where that lycopene epsilon cyclase diverted lycopene resources.
Yes. So, is there any negative effect of this knocking out of these two genes?
As I told that our homozygous, one of the homozygous line, where we have seen so many negative effects. That means that lutein and alpha carotene is also important for plants. If you completely remove those things, so there will be abnormalities, because there is a report that lutein is also involved in that photosynthesis. If you completely remove those, so there is the possibility to get some of the abnormal plants. We got also in our homozygous line. When paper will published, you will see that details, how we did and how we have analyzed.
That means this pathway is not good for generating.
No, that's why that
Not
it
pathway
is-
means this knocking out of these two genes are not.
No, our heterozygous lines are fine because there is some leakage of that lutein and they are forming.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so simultaneously increase of some other metabolites in others. Maybe it knockdown or maybe if we over expressing the things. So in case you find anything like that, because you are increasing beta carotene here. So what about the other metabolites?
You can see that in, I didn't basically read about this, but this is one of that analysis, carotenoids and composition or proximate analysis for food characteristics. So this is our objective. Proximate analysis, we have to see that different other components also. What is the effects of that when carotenoids has enhanced, but as you told that is true, there is the possibility to get that other compounds or other metabolites may not form as appropriately.
Yeah.
So we have to compare those things with control. What is happening in other parameters? Those are agronomical as well as food characteristics like amino acids content, carbohydrate, then fiber content, that we have to see that. We have to compare with control. So our objective should be like that whatever we want, that should be increased, like beta carotene should be increased or carotenoid should be increased, but other metabolites should not be affected. So that is the analysis of proximate analysis. That's our future objective that we have performed with selected lines.
So I have one question regarding that. So you have increased the carotenoid content. So basically, these carotenoids, tetraterpenes, they are also needed for the biosynthesis of hormone like ABA. So have you analyzed the abiotic stress tolerance ability of those lines? Because if there is decrease in the
Yeah,
that
yeah,
content.
we did this, and that particular lines we got this kind of ABA increase, and that's why that phenotypes has affected for that. We found that. Even we are working on that CCDs and NCD. I think so. You heard about NCD.
Yes, sir.
That is also responsible for ABA biosynthesis. So we are working on those aspects also.
So at the end, sir, I would like to thank you from all of us, and we are really grateful that you have accepted our invitation. And it was really very motivational talk, as you have established yourself as a pioneer in this field, and people could see the practical result of this CRISPR-Cas technology. And thank you, sir.
Thank
And
you
we
so
would
much.
like
Thank
to
you.
give you one memento. This is just a memory from
Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Even if you have any doubts or any confusion or you want to learn more about that, this is my mail ID, I think so. You can note down about that. and you can make contact with me.